1953, a team of talented visionaries decided to bring quality programming and superior news coverage to Texoma. And for 4 decades, you have been an integral part of this station's success. Join us tonight for a special salute to KFDX and you, celebrating 40 years together.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Stamps.
And I'm Scott Kopenberger. What about this crowd here tonight? Let's hear y'all. Yeah. We have got a full studio full of people, and welcome to a special celebration of a very special birthday of a Texoma tradition for 40 years.
KFDX turns 40 years old tonight. This hour-long show pays tributes to the station and to all of the people who have made KFDX what it is today and what it will be in the next 40 years.
We want you to join us now for a trip back in time to greet again some old friends many of you grew up with, people you may never have met personally, but they were as close to you as your next-door neighbor.
More than anything else, perhaps neighbor is the best way to describe our relationship all of these 4 decades. From the early days of Kinescope to today's high-resolution TVs, we've remained close friends and neighbors, sharing the good times and the bad, and we hope for the best the next 40 years.
Let's look at a little perspective here. How did it all begin? Dwight Eisenhower was President of the United States, Alan Shivers was governor, and Kendall Polk was the mayor of Wichita Falls. It was April 12, 1953 when the switch first turned on and KFDX hit the airwaves, and it has been uphill ever since. Tonight, Laura Merrill tells us how KFDX has gone from those first few hours of daily broadcasting to now when we're on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
It was 1953, the days when radio was still king. So why ruin a good thing? KFDX Radio was already in existence with very successful programs. Some of you might remember Howard Fry's Uncle Howdy and Man on the Street with Bill Hood. These well-loved voices soon became well-known faces. 30 people made up the operating staff of KFDX, a staff that has almost doubled since then. But at the time, it represented the largest staff of any radio and television station in this part of the Southwest. It was the only Wichita Falls-owned station with the majority of stock owned by members of the staff. It was a family affair. D.A. Cannon Sr. was the owner. He and his son, D.A. Cannon Jr., and his son-in-law, Howard Fry, operated the station until 1971.
The station was then sold to another family, Lyle and Buckner Clay of Clay Communication. They were based out of Charleston, West Virginia. They appointed Warren Silver general manager.
And in 1987, the station changed hands again to the current owner, Robert Price of Price Communication. Price boasts 3 television and 6 radio stations, as well as some publishing interests. The current general manager is Dwayne Lammers. He says Price is committed to 2 things. 1, quality news coverage, and 2, unparalleled community service, goals realized through major successes such as Women's Expo. But a television station is, of course, technology intensive. But any well-run business will admit it's the people that make it possible. We've gone from Beehive to Sideburns to the modern-day Bob. And faces come and go over the years, but as much as we think things are different, do they really ever change? Jack and his dad might say no.
Like most early television stations, KFDX heavily relied on radio personalities and technicians to meet the demand of a new medium. Among the first to come to KFDX TV from KFDX Radio was Dorothy Dooley with her popular radio show People from Here and There. It became the station's first talk show. Joining her on the television version of KFDX very own was Warren Silver, who remains an integral part of the KFDX news team today, keeping our maturing audiences up to date with what's going on with senior citizens. They're both here this evening for a little bit of reminiscing. And is it that far from where it was back then, Dorothy?
A long way, a very long way.
Earlier, right before the show, we were talking, and I asked you, was the transition from radio to television difficult? You said not nearly so as the transition from TV back to radio.
True, true. I went from television back into radio, and that was a jarring discovery. Rock had come into the picture.
Took quite a toll on the ears, I imagine.
Yes, it did, on the psyche. You know, I came from the days of easy music, and going back into radio was quite a revelation.
Warren, you've been around the station for many, many years. You've seen it go through the various transitions to where it actually is today. We were talking earlier, television, it started black and white, went to color. We didn't have such things as teleprompters back then. You memorized it all and ad-libbed it, even the commercials. Everything was live. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Dorothy, I was reminiscing with Kim earlier today, and she and the photographer were out doing a silver report, and she said, well, how did you do your commercials? I said, live. And she said, how did you do your introductions? I said, live. And she said, how'd you do your interview? How'd you get your... I said, we did them live. Everything was live, and both of them were quite amazed as to how everything was live from the beginning to the very end. There were no tapes, there was no film. We did have little teleops, little screens like this, and kinescope films we used occasionally. But I think that was the intriguing thing at that time, that everything was live from beginning to end for the very best, for all the show, all the way through. And I'm going to tell you that Dorothy and I had done a 15-minute radio show per day for a couple of 3 years on radio, and the sponsor wanted to be one of the first sponsors on TV. So she and I had the pleasure of hosting the first 1-hour live show on Channel 3 at 6 o'clock on that great Sunday, April the 12th of 19, you said many, we better add a third many years ago.
You're getting old.
I am getting old. But my hair turned, and yours hasn't for some reason. I don't know why.
Let me jump in here for a minute. Dorothy, when Warren was saying that, you were shaking your head. I wonder why. What do you remember? What's your most memorable moment?
Most memorable moment of what?
Well, from the first show that was airing. Your show.
The first show was a film presentation, and like everything else on that perilous Sunday, nothing went well. We had many mechanical problems, and I think that included the film. We were having a film shot by, was Kendall Polk mayor at that time?
Kendall Polk was mayor.
And he had been invited to White Sands for atom bomb testing and had made film, and we had that, and it was an interesting experience, and there were a lot of tears. There were a lot of tears after that event, after we went off the air, because everybody was pretty upset by it. But it got better. It got much better.
And there's lots more memories that we're going to share with the viewers. Dorothy and Warren, thank you both for coming out tonight to just touch upon something that I know means a lot to both of y'all's hearts and to the station's heart as well, and I appreciate.
It was a great beginning, and it's been great for 40 years, and those of us who are back here tonight have many memories that we will share. But we got it launched, and so that's where we are.
All right,
Thank
Warren,
you for inviting us.
We'll be hearing from you in just a little bit, too.
Okay,
all right, thank you. And Scott is standing by with a little bit more about what makes the station so special. Scott?
We'll have that in just a few minutes, but still to come in our celebration of 40 years together, a familiar face to Texoma viewers of the 50s and to their children and grandchildren. Stay with us.
Chrysler Plymouth Jeep Eagle, we've got the best selection of new cars we've had in years. 93 Cherokees, Voyagers, New Yorkers, Talons, and a few remaining 92s. Just a minute, I'll come down and show you. Ron, are you okay? You okay? Boy, the first step's a doozy. Remember, at Parnell, we don't make the profits others do. We don't have to.
If you want first, you want KFDX.
KFDX was the first station to bring you crime reenactments with Crime Stoppers.
KFDX was the first station to actively get involved with our children's education by establishing the Making the Grade program.
KFDX is your first choice for accurate and dependable weather information.
KFDX is the first station to recognize and salute the drive of our local athletes.
If you want first, you want KFDX.
The only person who was never helped by anybody at any time died at childbirth. From all of us at the Cow Lot, we'd like to express our appreciation to the original owners of Channel 3. Had it not been for the caring of Mr. Darrell Cannon Sr., I certainly don't think the little old Cow Lot would still be there. So, to the descendants of the Cannon family, we haven't forgotten.
You're going to have to hurry to take advantage of that incredible $2 million half-price sale at Midwest Furniture Showcase in Wichita Falls and in Lawton. The half-price sale. The discount everyone understands. If it was $500, it's $250. If it was $1,000, it's $500. Everything, one half off Midwest Furniture Showcase's regular retail value price, plus no down payment, no interest, no monthly payment for 6 months. Not a penny till October. Midwest Furniture Showcase.
In the early days, live was the only way to go, and when KFDX first hit the airwaves, television was very much experimental. It didn't take long before the medium found success with the variety show. KFDX had its own version where music, humor, and an almost anything-goes attitude went right to the hearts of local viewers, and the man responsible is Nat Fleming, who has some stories to tell about the Nat Fleming Show, and today I think you would probably most recognize him by the straight talk, down-to-earth Cow Lot commercials. Nat, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Let's look back in time here and give me the flavor of the Nat Fleming Show.
Well, the flavor was pure country, I guess, Scott. We had, I thought, the greatest band that ever came to Wichita Falls. I could say that because I didn't play an instrument. We had Buck White, Pee Wee Stewart, Elmer Lawrence, Tommy Bruce, Pappy Stapp. It was just a great little country band.
Now, when you look back at the Nat Fleming Show, what is the one thing that sticks out in your mind about it?
Well, the one thing that sticks in my mind is that I'm still in business.
Good point.
And I couldn't have bought the advertising then, so I let the people know where I was and what I was. And, actually, I guess I meant that for a joke in a way. But I got to meet so many people and know so many people. Of course, I was on radio for 25 years, but there's nothing like television.
How was that transition from radio to TV?
Well, it wasn't a transition for a long time. It was just a hump and get it. I had a 6-hour radio show on Saturday morning and then 5 30-minute television shows every week, Monday through Friday, from 5:30 to 6. So it wasn't really a transition. It was in addition to.
What stands out, though? Any funny moment that you had that you might remember that when you look back at the Nat Fleming Show, that's the one thing that tickles your funny bone? Or?
Well, Mr. Cruz was one of our sponsors at the time, Cruz Tire Company. That's before your day, too. His motto was, trade with Cruz or we both lose. So I did pretty well with that. We went off the air. You know, we gave about 5-minute commercials. There weren't a minute. They were about 5 or 10 minutes. So we go off the air, and I say, remember, if you trade with Cruz, we both lose. So far as I know, I guess I'm the only one that ever noticed it, though.
And he was there with Ham Hamilton from Hamilton Bryan, too. All kinds of early advertisers here that helped make our station very strong. Nat, I really appreciate you coming out here this evening and reminiscing, and I know that we're going to have a good time here later on, and I just appreciate you having the time to come on out here and meet old friends here, too.
Thank you, Scott. I wouldn't miss it.
Well, television has come a long way since the Nat Fleming Show. What you see on your TV screen is the end result of imagination and the continuous change in technology. The nuts and bolts of TV takes place behind the scenes, where Bill Martin joins us to look at technology then and now. Bill?
And Nat, you can tell by looking how much things have changed. Just look at this, our control room right in here, and this is where it all happens. You know, TV has come a long way from big black and white tube cameras, color change the face of the medium. Now there's stereo TV. We have digital technology. It's giving creativity the freedom it's never had before. It all comes together right here in the control room where precision and expertise make for a sure shot.
40 years ago, this pocket-sized calculator was only a dream. Primitive calculators took up enough space to fill an average bedroom. Calculator technology has changed, and so has television. When KFDX went on the air in 1953, equipment was big, clumsy, and primitive to what we know today.
Desoldering joints.
Charlie Neal was an engineer at KFDX until 1974. He remembers the day-to-day challenges.
Cameras were big, studio monitors were large, the transmitters filled up the whole back room. Maintenance was much greater than it is nowadays.
Tube cameras and film chains kept Neal busy at the station. The term "in the can" was not in the TV vocabulary. Everything was live, but that's what Neal enjoyed.
And during a news, weather, sports sequence in the studio, it was a madhouse to try to change sets and change props.
Today, KFDX uses video recorders. They edit tape electronically instead of cutting and splicing film. Solid-state equipment is smaller, more reliable, and better quality. KFDX engineer Terry Porter says transistors and microcircuitry open new doors for television, but the big change came later.
Instead of using microwave to bring our signals in from the network all the way across the country and always having one of the microwave spots broken, now we use the satellites in the geostationary orbit.
Today, Porter enjoys the high-tech challenge. He says high-definition TV will change the way America watches, but his job will stay the same.
Just to keep it on the air.
Now, one thing that hasn't changed is the importance of weather coverage at KFDX.
That's right. Through the years, our station has prided itself on top talent and experience to keep you informed.
When we come back, some familiar faces who were there when you needed them the most. Stay with us.
Difficulty sleeping, eating, and relating to others. Depression was pulling him away from everyone he loved, even me. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let it happen. I'm glad I cared enough to call Red River Hospital.
Call us at 322-3171. If you really care, you'll make the call that counts. 322-3171.
Like an Oklahoma store, your Oklahoma Country Ford dealer is ready to strike a deal. Big deals during Ford Truck Month. Right now, you can save on America's #1 selling trucks, loaded with features you gotta have. Buy a Ford F-150 and save up to $1,300. Or get the all-new '93 Ford Ranger and save up to $2,150. It's Truck Month at your Oklahoma Country Ford dealer. But hurry, because deals like this won't strike twice.
Smiling, laughing children, but hyperactivity, emotional, or social problems could be symptoms of something bigger. Hello, I'm Cindy Bradford. Did you know we have a neuropsychologist here who specializes in working with children who have attention deficit disorder?
As a neuropsychologist, we can evaluate between emotional disorders like depression, anxiety, conduct disorders, and look at learning problems as they relate to brain behavior or as they relate to the task at hand.
Call Dr. Escondel at North Texas Neurology Associates. Our specialty is helping you.
The word for the month is volume, and here at Dan Delamo Nissan, that's our goal. I've just tripled the inventory, and we've got over 100 new Nissans in stock. So if you're in the market for a new car, believe me, now is the time to buy. For example, a brand new 93 Maxima retails for $21,400. That's too high. Take $4,000 off that. Now only $17,400. So come in and check it out. That's at Dan Delamo Nissan, 2nd and Gore Boulevard, in the heart of beautiful downtown Lawton.
You know, it's been a while since a large natural disaster hit Texoma. Probably the last one many people remember was the 1989 floods. 10 years before that, of course, it was a 1979 tornado. And in 1963, as you just saw, residents may recall another twister that made its mark on Wichita Falls. But times and technologies have definitely changed. One major thing that's changed, of course, is, as you've all heard, the next RAD is coming. And that's going to allow us to do so much more than just look at a radar and see where the storms are. This is going to allow us to look inside the storm, which will give us the capability of picking out severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, well before they hit the ground. And, of course, that's good news. But joining us tonight to talk about the progression of technology are Warren Silver, Tom Crane, and Bill Warren. Remember him, the weather vane? Well, today's weather technology capabilities have changed a great deal. But one thing that remains solid is Texoma's thirst for accurate weather information and, of course, our commitment to provide that information. Now, Warren, you were here a long time ago. What was it like to first do the weather?
That's the second time someone said a long time ago. Well, what was it like?
That's the most accurate thing he ever said.
That's the most accurate, yeah, that's right. Well, I must say that in 1953, I believe we were more accurate than you guys are today.
Thank you, Warren. We'll go right on.
No, long ways. We used to go on the air at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I'd have to leave the house about 3:30 and go to the Weather Bureau, and I would sketch out the map, and then I would come to the studio and interpolate it on the things that we had at that time, which were prints of maps. And we had a set, as I told you, everything was live, and the weather set at that time was a huge 10-foot wide by 8-foot high with some maps in the middle of it that we would pull down every single screen that we would do. First would come down the national, then would come down the local. And we would do the fountain pen, and we'd do the fountain pen, and sometimes you'd run across like this, and it'd just drip all over the place. And pulling that thing down, I was telling you earlier, the thing that I remember most painful about that whole experience was I used this finger to pull that thing down one night, and it caught me and ripped my finger clear into the first knuckle. And I stood here for 5 minutes ad-libbing with that thing bleeding.
You're braver than I am. I'd have been crying.
We had a lot of memories. But as I said, things were, and I would stand off to the side of the news set, and I would pick that heavy thing up and move it in. As soon as the live commercial across the studio was being done between the news and the weather, and we'd move that into the set, and then be all ready to go as if we'd been there the whole time, you know. And so everything was remote.
Real quick, like you did mention the very first advertiser. Who was it?
City National Bank at 10 o'clock on Sunday night.
Fantastic. Now, Bill Warren, you were here in '79 when the tornado hit. What can you remember about that?
That was right at 6 o'clock. At that time, the format was that the weather was first in the newscast. And we had started the weathercast. There was a tornado warning in effect for the northern portion of Wichita County at the time. And I remember we had started, and I was talking about the weather that had gone on that afternoon, the tornadoes in Vernon. And Sam Armstrong came in from the newsroom with a piece of paper and ran over to the weather set. And it said, "Tornado at Stadium, damage reported." And I kind of felt like this is probably true. It was like this was the one we'd always feared, the one that would come in from the southwest part of town and rake right across the community. And I turned to Sam and I said, "This is accurate. You want me to put this on the air?" Because it wasn't an official tornado warning from the Weather Service. He said, "Yeah, that's confirmed." So I said, if you haven't opened your windows, this is the time not to take the time to do that. A lot of people remember that comment. If there was a reason I was born, maybe that was it. I don't know. I haven't lived all my life yet, but that was an exciting day. And then Warren and I, right after that, the lights went out. There was a lot of commotion in the studio, and we figured out after 10 seconds they probably weren't going to come back on. Right. And 25 hours later, they did come on, and Warren and I anchored about an hour of all the video that we had collected during the last day.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Tom Crane, the weather vane, you said you had something you wanted to mention. What are your favorite recollections?
Well, Skip, you've got to understand, back in those days, we all did everything. So by the time we were on the air from 6:30 in the morning until midnight, we were all pretty tired because most of us got up early, took a break, got back at noon, took a break, and we were there for 6 and 10 o'clock. But because we worked all the time, our family and our friends were the people who worked at the station. So the big event was Friday night when we got our first night of the weekend. And so people typically would gather around the station, and at 10 o'clock they would wait for the news, the weather, and the sports. And so then we would all go usually to P2, and it was great in the spring and summertime because we sat outside. It was just,
I hear everybody laughing over there.
Yeah, it was just it was a wonderful experience. But like you get sometimes when there are parties to be had, or lighter times to be had, you get a little silly and a little giddy. After all, it was Friday night, you know, TGIF. So my fondest and most vivid memory of Channel 3 is not with me doing the weather, although there were several of those, but actually it was Warren doing the weather. And for whatever reason, the scenario was Warren did the weather and I followed with the sports. And he signed off with a very hefty, so hi-ho and a rip-tee-dee-doo to you. Now, I have to tell you, I didn't know then, and I don't know now what that means, but
he still uses it.
I mean, it really touched my funny bone.
Oh, great.
So we didn't have too many commercials. That was a real long time ago. So just 30 seconds or so later, they came to me, and I said, "Good evening, sports fans." And I started laughing, and I mean, I laughed for 2.5 minutes. And it's funny because people still remember that, yes, and still kind of remind me of how funny that was for them. Well, anyway, I wiped my eyes, and we went to the commercial and came back, and I said, "Now for the rest of the sports." And I laughed again for 2.5 minutes.
We've done that. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight and keeping everybody out there apprised of all the nasty storms we've had over the years. Thank you very much.
Happy for you.
You're accurate. You're very good.
Yeah, I paid him to say that. Yeah. Scott, Kim?
I told him.
Bill, Warren, Tom, and Skip, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, weather is just a part of KFDX, and before you and I, many news anchors came to KFDX to do the news.
We definitely have seen Bill Warren, and we've got some more on standby right now, and we're going to talk with them and hear some of their thoughts about what they're doing today, so stay with us.
Serving 2 states for 40 years. What else could I say but happy anniversary, KFDX.
Barry honestly wants his parents to get a divorce.
They are fighting continuously. I'm tired of getting in between.
Do you have to mediate like more than once a week?
Usually more than once a day.
If they got divorced, why would life be better?
There's no other way peace can be held together without them two being split up.
Would your child be better off if you got a divorce? Next, Sally.
Sally Jesse Raphael at 3 p.m. on KFDX.
Done that. Did that. Been there. Tried that. Done it. Did it. Done it. Doing it tomorrow. Whoa! Never did it. You've never done nothing till you do, diet, do. Did it. Done it. Liked it. Loved it.
Are your wheels properly aligned? No? Well, Gilmore's Body Frame and Alignments, trained technicians, and state-of-the-art computer alignment system gives your vehicle better handling, longer tire life, and a more comfortable ride for you. Plus, it's the right thing to do. Gilmore's Body Frame and Alignment, today's care for today's car.
Happy 40th anniversary to Texoma's 24-hour news team, KFDX.
Well, over the years, news has changed just like the faces and the names.
Two faces many Texomans will remember are Bill Warren and Cindy Bradford. The two began co-anchoring together at 6 o'clock and at 10 o'clock from 1984 till 1990.
Tonight, they're back to share some memories. Let me start with you, Cindy, first. Tell me about the time that you first got on the air here. What was that like?
With Bill? Got my toe. With Bill Warren, you mean?
Well, sure.
With Bill Warren.
No. Go all the way back.
Go all the way
back. That's a long way.
74?
78. Started here in 1978 during the noon show. Did the noon show for a couple years, then went to 6 and 10, back to noon. And Bill and I started in 84. And we were talking earlier, I know I was nervous, very nervous. That was an exciting time for us. We were under the direction of Bill Overman. We were trying to get focused, work on our content, become more community involved. So I was nervous. I felt like a lot of pressure on to get going, and because we were down in the ratings at that time, so we were really trying to push at that time.
So what are you doing here today?
Here I'm now back in Wichita Falls, this area, and I'm working for North Texas Neurology Associates, and I'm doing marketing and patient and physician relations, and it's been very fun to be back. Just back about 5 months.
Scott, I'm going to talk here to Bill for a second. What was it like when the two of you first began anchoring together?
It was the end of a transition for me. I had started anchoring in '83, the year before, doing 6 and 10, and we had different anchors at 6 and co-anchors at 6 and 10. And that was a year of transition. I was transitioning from being the weather guy to being the news guy. I thought that'd be easy. It wasn't. It wasn't. To be yourself as a weatherman and to be yourself as a news anchor are two different things. It was a difficult year. By the time Cindy arrived, I was feeling pretty comfortable. It was a little more difficult later on when she was news director, because I was sitting next to the boss.
You have to behave yourself, don't you?
Yeah. But then she left, and that was good. And then you and I did.
And we had a good time up there
we
together,
had a good time
too.
for a couple of years.
Just thinking back, what made KFDX so strong, do you think?
Commitment to community, commitment to doing our best to pull together the strongest pool of talent that we could. I don't mean that to be immodest. I think consistently across the board, Channel 3 has always strived to get the best talent we could, and I think that's what's made our strength. In the years we were strongest, it was the community involvement that proved that we were a part of this town too.
All right, Bill, thanks very much.
And Cindy, I want to ask you, what is your most memorable moment on the air?
Oh, let's see. I'd say the times, the laughter. Because you guys all know, in fact, I've anchored with you, filling in for Bill, and get tickled.
And you've cracked up a few times, too,
I've cracked up a few times. So that, for me, they were fun times. I think they showed that we were human. The news, we were trying to be credible, with the content, but we were human, and things would happen, and I'd get tickled. So that was the best times.
Bill and Cindy, we sure miss you. And we miss your influence around here, and we still learn from you today, and we're still using some of those principles that you all taught us.
Good to have both of you here tonight. Thank you for making time out of your schedules to be here.
Out here.
Okay.
We're going to ask some others to move in here.
A few more faces that you're going to remember.
Okay, let's go right on down the line here. Make sure that I'm not getting my bottom here in the shot here. First of all, we've got Jerry Johnson. For those of you who do not know Jerry Johnson, I'll tell you what, this is kind of awkward. I'm just going to sit right up here with you. For those of you who did not know who you are today, what did you do then, and what are you doing today?
We got started doing sports in 1975 to 1977. We probably really emphasized the local coverage, and I hold the record for the world's shortest weathercast. One Saturday night we had 5 minutes for weather and 5 minutes for sports, and I figured if I only used a minute and a half for weather, then I could get 8.5 out of sports. And Monday following that, Warren said, "You're just going to be doing the sports from here on out."
Sounds pretty good to me. We've also got some others over there with you.
All right, Leslie, you started here. What year?
1982, I started as an intern.
And that was right out of college, is that right?
Well, actually, it was before I got out of college.
Okay. What are some of your most memorable moments when you first got started on the air?
Well, one of the things that I remember is we were always late. At that time, Channel 3 was last in the market, and it seemed like we had this reputation for always being late, and once we got there, the equipment never worked. And once we pulled together a team and got that working together, it was a lot of fun to see how we inched up in the ratings. And during my time here, we came from number 3 to number 1, and that was really exciting.
One thing that I continually hear from people in the community, what's Leslie doing now? Some people don't realize that you're still here in Wichita Falls.
Yes, I am. We live here, probably always will. I work at Bethania Regional Healthcare Center now. I'm the public relations manager for the hospital.
Leslie, thanks for coming out tonight. Scott?
Catherine McGregor, you may recognize her also. Tell me what you're doing now and what you did then and when.
Well, my husband and I are co-owners and sell real estate with RE/MAX Champion Realtors here in town, and I've been back in town probably about 8 years, 10 years, somewhere in that range. And I used to work here in 1976 to 78 and did weekend anchoring and reporting during the weekdays, and those were the days when there was not a lady anchor. Keith Garrison held down the fort, and they tested it out, the lady anchors on the weekends. And so,
and how well did it work?
We'll ask Cindy and Kim and all the other people, apparently well enough.
What was the one thing that stands out in your mind about here at KFDX?
Well, you know, we've been sitting back there talking about that because there wasn't a lot of notice that we should come up with some great story. But I think the sense of community that we had as we worked together and a great sense of camaraderie and friendship, and it was really fun times. If the truth were known, Warren Silver left the station on the weekends to a bunch of young kids like Jerry and Catherine, and it managed to stay afloat.
That community involvement and that camaraderie has always been a common bond throughout over here.
Dale Terry is still here in Wichita Falls as well. What years were you here at KFDX from?
I started in 1963 when Leslie was 2 years old.
Doesn't that make you feel great? I could tell you, well, never mind.
No, you weren't born yet.
A few years down the road. But anyway, let me ask you this. What is your most memorable moment? We seem to be reminiscing here.
Oh, mercy, I don't know. I guess maybe the '64 tornado when I was well, first of all, you've got to understand, we only had 3 people in the news department back then, and one never left his chair. So that made 2. And I decided to see what a tornado looked like on the inside of the funnel, looking up with a camera. And a possum and I traded out on a culvert, so I never did find out. But probably that was one of the most exciting things. Sitting here brings a lot of memories, though, of great people who have been here in this studio. Jay Silver.